In 2020, I made a muscle growth priority pyramid, and today we're going to tear it apart, reorganize it, and add some things in. The idea behind this isn't so we have a pretty chart we can post on social media. It's to get us thinking about our training, where our weak links are, and what we can do to fix them. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. I've often said consistency is the foundation of muscle growth. If we're not training consistently, then we aren't going to build muscle. That said, we can consistently train once a month, maybe even 2 or 3 times a month, but that's not enough. We need a greater frequency than this. This is why I'm moving frequency to the bottom of the pyramid. I'm going to replace its old spot with something else. You need to train a muscle group at least once a week, and twice is even better. The more frequently we train, the more it increases our weekly training volume. So it's time to move to the next level. I'm keeping volume and intensity here, as they are like the Siamese twins of muscle growth. When building muscle, volume without intensity is a waste of time, and intensity needs some degree of volume for growth. You can't just do your 1 rep max on the squat, bench, and deadlift every day and think you're going to build muscle. Training intensity is often defined as a percentage of your 1 rep maximum. I prefer to look at intensity as how close you train to failure. Another way to word this is reps in reserve. For example, if you're training with a weight that brings you to failure at 12 repetitions, but on each set you only do 5 reps, leaving 7 in reserve, this isn't enough intensity to build muscle. Let me know in the comments if you agree with this. The general rule of thumb is you need to be within at least 3 or 4 repetitions from failure to build muscle. I like to take my last set to technical failure and use this as a guideline to establish the goal number of repetitions for my working sets on my next workout. It's important to always have a goal for each set before you start. Volume is often defined as sets times reps times weight or load. The problem with this is the same as with intensity. It doesn't recognize how close to failure these sets are. While there are advantages to high rep training, those initial repetitions aren't as effective for muscle growth as the later ones, which is why most studies look at volume as the number of sets done close to failure. So how many working sets per body part per week should we be doing for maximum muscle growth? The truth is, the more volume we can do and fully recover from is what will build the most muscle. This is why I'm adding recovery to this layer of the pyramid. It's the limiting factor to how much volume and intensity we can train within a given week. The most significant factors affecting recovery are sleep, nutrition, stress, and training experience. Nutrition is important enough that it should have its own spot on the pyramid. But I wouldn't put it before progression, because no matter how perfect your diet is, if you aren't training, then you won't build any muscle. Nutrition alone doesn't build muscle. To continue to grow, we need to make our training progressive. There are 3 main ways to do this. The most basic is called linear progression. This is when we simply add weight to the bar over time. The most common one is called double progression, where you gradually increase the number of repetitions you're doing within a range, say 8 to 12. Once you can do 12 repetitions, you increase the weight and start back at 8 reps. And as you get stronger, you slowly work your way back up to 12. The final method is triple progression, where you not only increase the weight and repetitions, but also the number of sets you do. The way I use this in my programming is I'll add in extra sets on a muscle group I'm focusing on improving. Then after a block of time, which could be a month, I'll reduce the number of sets on that muscle and increase the sets in another area. So every body part eventually gets extra work without my workouts becoming too long. Another way you could increase the number of sets is by adding in another exercise, which brings us to exercise selection. The basic movements needed to train our whole body are a squat, a pressing move, a row, and a deadlift. Just doing these exercises would be a very minimalist training approach. I'd add a vertical pull, which would include pull-ups or a lat pull down, and do both a horizontal press like bench press and a vertical press like shoulder press. Other exercises can be added, so we're training each muscle through all possible movement patterns. An example of this is we think of working our chest when we do bench press or push-ups. But the chest also brings our arm across our body, so it makes sense to include chest flies into our programming. This is where I'm adding in nutrition. Now, if your diet mainly consists of ding-dongs and ho-hos, then you're going to have to improve it pretty early on to continue building muscle. It could be argued that nutrition is important enough that it should get its own pyramid and be set right up next to this one. On that pyramid, I'd have calories or energy intake as the foundation, with protein, which is often misunderstood, being the next level. To discover protein mistakes you're probably making, watch this video next and keep working out while having fun. This is Lawrence from Fit and 50. We'll talk to you again in the next one.